This guy's got a long list of bona fides I've got to read here, and that's how good a quality instructor Brian Manzella is, my good friend. I've known for at least 10 years. Is that right, Brian? I'll just start with 2003 PGA Kentucky Section Teacher of the Year. 2013 PGA Gulf States Section Teacher of the Year. Two different sections, 10 years apart. It won't be long before he's Teacher of the Year for something else again too. Since 2012 till currently, Golf Magazine Top 100 Instructors in America. Longtime students include college player Lindsey Game, who's an All-American over at LSU. A guy who keeps kicking our butts in lots of the national PGA tournaments, Kevin Shields, and a fellow you've all heard of named David Toms, who does a good job out there for a long time. About the 5th leading money winner of all time, is that right, Brian?
Top 10.
Top 10 now. Okay, they're catching up with those prices. He's been the teacher of lots more people than that, and especially for those of us who are at all active on the internet. If you've read the internet, any internet forum, you know who Brian Manzella is. Brian's done 104 videos for Golf Magazine. I've seen 99 of those maybe. 8 retail videos that have sold pretty successfully, very successfully. And you know, you want to do the best job you can be the best teacher you can be. And this guy has attended every PGA National Teaching Summit since they started way back when was the first year, Brian?
88.
Since 1988. Every one. That's a tough standard to stand up to. Every teaching and coaching summit, geez. Presented at 13, actually we're lucky 13. I told him we had good sushi out here and good Mexican food, and that's how we get Brian Manzella away from all that good food in Louisiana, New Orleans. So without much further ado, I'd introduce to you the Ragin' Cajun, or the Galileo of golf, Brian Manzella.
Check. Yay. Thank you, Billy. Certainly a pleasure. Probably needs to come down a little bit. I have a big mouth. So, pleasure to be here. Started coming out to California in 1987 to work with Ben Doyle for the first time, and it was always a treat. Grew up on Bermuda Greens. Remember being at the 1990 PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit in Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry Hotel to see one of my just awesome people that I looked up to, still do, Greg McCatton, present, friends like Mike Hebron that started the summit. It's really a lot of fun to do these sorts of things, and I really appreciate Billy and your section having me out. Let me get my little clicker here. I've got a lot of slides. There's no possible way I'm going to get through all of them in the indoor session. So, excuse me, so when we go outside, I'll kind of try to go through them in live version, and I think we'll get to most of the information. I do these all over. I've been to about 7 or 8 countries, and they go about as well as the interaction. So I'm not here to tell you I know everything. Matter of fact, I think it pretty much says that in the first slide. But at any time, if anybody has a question, even though I'm going to try to zip through these things, please, you don't even really have to raise your hand, just blurt it out. So today's goal. So when I used to be the guy, that went to all of these things and just said, hey, I wish I could talk. So the purpose really, unless you're just showing off, is to try to give you guys and girls some things that you can use in your golf lessons. Otherwise, I don't even know why you would have a seminar or a summit, right? So I'm going to try to help you upgrade your toolbox today. A few years ago, we figured out that golf pros are fairly smart about the golf swing, and scientists are smarter. So my favorite little slide right here, science ruining everything since 1543, like unicorns. My buddy Mike Jacobs, was the youngest Met Section Teacher of the Year, 35 years old. He likes this the best. There is no Santa Claus. So That means this: there is nobody in this business that knows everything about the golf swing. I like to quote myself, and there's nobody that ever will. We have about 10 scientists that we call on all the time and consult with. One is a PhD in engineering, one's a PhD in exercise physiology. They don't even know what each other knows, and they're not going to have enough time in this lifetime to learn that stuff. So there's no way a golf pro or any person who used to be a golf pro or maybe lived 50 years ago or something like that is going to know everything about the golf swing. But having said that, there's the lab, right? There's the lesson tee, and then there's the golf course. And what we're trying to do, obviously, is get people to play golf better. And with the rate we're going right now, we need to teach everybody up a little bit and grow the game. So Thomas Sowell's a famous economist and sort of philosopher. The march of science and technology does not imply growing intellectual complexity in the lives of most people. It mostly means the opposite, right? As I paraphrase the end of that. So even though there's a lot of science in this thing, at the end of the day, it's so that you're standing up in a lesson. Like I work with some of Alan's girl students, and I know a little bit better what to do to help them play better golf. So that's what I hope today. And our friend David Lovasso says, kid, if you cannot explain this in childlike terms, you just memorize some fancy words. So I think a lot of our business, at least from the consumer end, right, it's all perception. Why would anybody spend more than $50 for a lesson if there's a guy around the corner that charges $50 and you charge more than that, right? Perception, right? And I think people need to understand there's what the teacher says, there's what the student thinks the teacher said, and there's what the student actually does. So that accounts for a lot of famous instructor relationships with students. Right? If it confuses you a little bit why this worked for one person and this didn't work for the other person, maybe the person it worked for didn't exactly do what the teacher said. Now you're the teacher of record, you still get credit. I deserve about zero credit for anything David Toms ever did. I mean, first time I ever met him, I caddied for him, and he was 13 under par after 27 holes in a tropical storm. So I really just basically screwed him up and then tried to undo my screw up. So just remember rule one. Now, good golf teaching, right? Everybody knows a bunch of good golf teachers. Good golf teaching is about communicating, right? It's about people. It's about your 10 o'clock lesson with Mrs. Fabersham, 15 handicapper, ladies 9-hole group, and then the little young man whose daddy's very involved in his golf game taking a lesson a little later, right? So you have to be able to, you have to do that, and really, at the end of the day, it's balancing things out. You got a hooker in front of you, and you have to make them into not of a hooker. So you have to add some slice elements, so to speak, right? And it's about promotion. And you know, if you're not good at that, you're not going to fill your book up pretty much. But that's good golf teaching. Great golf teaching is also about the what, because you got to get the what right so you don't make any crazy errors. And today's presentation, it's going to be a lot about the what. So, questions from the floor at any time? Debate? Obviously, nobody's going to, there's probably nobody in the room who agree with everything I'm going to say today, and definitely inside the room there'll be some people that disagree with me. And this first little section right here, this 20 question part, is basically me telling on myself. Because I've been doing this 31 years here in about 3 weeks. Played my last college tournament, 5 to play 4, and I was already teaching the junior program, probably violating NCAA rules, but I mean, I was just on the clock. And I started teaching the next day. So 31 years of this, there's a lot that I used to teach that I don't teach now. I'm trying not to pop so much. Okay, so there used to be a TV show, you'd have to be older than me to remember it, called 20 Questions. The first thing that we chased for a while, the heavy hit. So what was the heavy hit theory? The heavy hit theory suggested that somehow you could tie some of your mass to the mass of the club and maybe get in position to resist the deceleration of the ball, okay? Like, I played football. I was a little guy. I've ate too much pizza and pasta and Haagen-Dazs since then, right? So you run into a 230-pound running back, 175-pound free safety, and you don't have your legs and your butt underneath you, he knocks you in the next week. You have your legs and your butt underneath you, he runs over you, but you look better on film. When the ball hits the club, the vibration travels up about 4 or 5 inches. And as far as the ball knows, that's what hit it. So if you could get Randy Johnson in his prime or Justin Verlander to cut this club off right here, we go over to Alan Hocknell at Callaway, and we find out exactly where the center of gravity is. There's 4 or 5 inches of shaft, this little piece of red tape, this ferrule, the glue, and there's no lead powder because these are perfectly milled clubs. And I'm a Callaway staff member, proud to be. So, and Justin Verlander throws that 4 or 5 inches of club 100 miles an hour at the ball, and it tumbles around, blah, 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 and so somehow magically lines up at impact. The ball would fly exactly the same as if Robert Garrigus or Kevin Woodland, this big, had the club in their hand. So there is no such thing as a heavy hit. Second thing is, there's no mechanical advantage. Now look, mechanical advantage. Everything that I'm going to talk about today that you don't have to do might help somebody. So if it helps somebody, then keep doing it. There's no mechanical advantage to hitting the golf ball and having the club perfectly, like so-called up the left arm, like I'm putting it in my sleeve here, after impact. There's a lot of reasons why you might look that way and it'd be okay, and there'd be a lot of reasons why you might look that way and it not be okay, but we pretty much have exhausted this question with the scientists, and they don't want to hear it anymore. There is no mechanical advantage to it. The ball's gone, and as long as you line that club up for impact, just like Verlander throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball with it, you're fine. Shaft bending profiles. I have a slide on this later on, but what I used to think happened is that you would bend the club into lag. That would be if I pulled this, if I had this club head straight up and down and I could pull this club this way and put it, I thought you could bend the club into lag in a change of direction. That's a tempo master right there, one of those whippy things. And somehow sustain that bend way into the downswing. That is a gross misrepresentation of what happens. And my buddy Mike Finney would say, if you try to do that, you're offending the shaft. It's actually bending toe up and slightly into lead in the change of direction. So you do bend the shaft in the change of direction, but it might not be bending the way you thought. One of my favorite things right here, assuming club head speed, impact point, all of those things, right? A lot of these slides are assuming those things. Compression equals spin loft. Or what the heck is spin loft? Spin loft is dynamic loft of the club at, post first touch of impact, and basically in the angle of attack. So if you have this club right here, 6-iron, and you have 20 degrees of dynamic loft, and you hit down on it 4 degrees, the difference between the 20 up and the 4 down is 24 degrees of obliqueness, right? So if you got a pool cue with a perfect tip on it, and you delivered the cue perfectly level, you'd have 0 degrees of spin loft. You'd have 0 angle of attack and 0 loft. So Tiger Woods banging down on this shot, right, probably in some major or something, and then somebody on TV, God bless him, saying that he really compressed that ball. I want you to think about this. If he took that 6-iron, looks like about a 6-iron, he de-lofted it to 15, dynamic loft, and he hit down on it 8, looks like might be close to that, 23 degrees of dynamic loft. And let's say he swung 95 miles an hour. Okay, 23 degrees of dynamic loft, 95 miles an hour. Guys on TV are salivating over how much he compressed that ball. Okay, now if you go to any of the Callaway guys here that have done a million demo days, they'll tell you there's a lot of people that are members and people that take lessons from us that can swing a driver 95 miles an hour. So you can swing that driver 95 miles an hour and flip it like no tomorrow and deliver 20 degrees of dynamic loft and hit down on it 8, and compress the ball exactly the same as Tiger Woods did, trapping, so to speak, in quotation marks, that 6-iron. Compression is spin loft, and just because Jack Nicklaus never took a divot with a 1-iron, don't think he didn't compress it. My buddy Mike Finney over here on the left, Tiger Woods in 2000 on the right. When I started teaching Michael, he was the #9 ranked junior in the world. He's a head pro at Owl Creek Country Club in Louisville, Kentucky, and never made it to the tour because of me. Because I taught him to do that. I got his hands to go from wherever they were at his right thigh down to impact, because I was a dummy. Tiger Woods in 2000, you can see how much his hands are going up. Now when your hands are going down, they're probably also going somewhat out, and when your hands are going up, they're probably going in, but it'd be real helpful to know that, and I think Michael, by the way, was telling me, Phil Cheatham just reported this in one of the Facebook groups the other day. He's doing his PhD, and there's like 96 PGA Tour players, mostly winners in the group, and practically everybody's hands are going up in impact. I mean, there might be a couple guys, and maybe they were having a bad day. If I'd have just known that, I think it cost Michael probably about $10 million, the best I can figure. David made $40 million. He was about 25% as good as David. He'll get a kick out of that when he sees this. There's my buddy Andrew Rice right there. Sorry, Andrew. You're not the only person to ever drag a towel on the ground. You just had the best picture of it on the internet. If I only told you how many times I did that, it's not a bad idea. It probably helps a lot of people. It might be very helpful to know that when you're doing that, you're probably putting force on the back of the shaft, sort of kind of toward the target. And at that point in the swing, all the force should be up the shaft toward you. I mean, maybe not completely up the shaft, but 90 degrees to your hand pad. If the club looked like that, it would be straight up the shaft. Not a bad idea. It's one of those things that look good because, you know, somebody's doing this, so you might as well, this looks a lot better, looks more like a tour player, but you better watch when you do that, that you do it correctly, that you do it, and you can drag the mop on the ground, but you want all the force to come toward you, or like Ben Doyle taught me and Greg McCatton, like you're shooting a marble out of a tube. The only way you would shoot the marble this way is you would pull this way, so Ben was a pretty smart guy and still is. I dig this one. 75% of all the work, now this is like the physics term of work. Mr. Maffei right there can help you out with that at lunch, okay? Just moves your body. It just goes into orienting your body. It doesn't even get to the club head. Only 25% of all the oomph, that's a Brian word, not a science word, gets into the club head. So, you know, you can pivot like crazy if you want to, but, you know, you're hitting it with your hands and arms and the club, and it's more or less just a positioning device, orientation. Art smiled. When scientists smile, you did good. Number 8, interestingly, smart people are always learning. I was talking about really old buddy. He's not old. We've just been buddies for a long time. Greg, before we started, and he was talking about this very picture here at the bottom, having never seen the picture, just doing his own independent research. So one of our scientist buddies is a guy named Dr. Young-Hoo Kwan from Texas Women's University. You go on the internet, and you'll see a lot of Dr. Kwan stuff. The actual planes of motion of body parts, let's say from waist high to waist high, are wildly different than we're thought of. So I guess that really kind of, I should have that next to another slide that basically says you really don't want to invent an idea or a methodology of how to teach golf based on just looking at pictures. You know, you can use pictures, but you know, get the science right first. So our buddy Chris Como, who actually is a student of Dr. Young-Hoo Kwan and part of the movement towards science, Dr. Sasho McKenzie suggested to Chris, hey Chris, you know, it'd be a great idea to show ground reaction forces. I think you could find one of those really tall, like platform diving boards like they use like in the Olympics, surely at the school where you, so he went up there, I don't know how many meters, long way, in golf clothes. It looks like bare feet though, at least he took his golf shoes off, jumped. jumped off and made a swing for science to prove a point. You gotta like a brother to do that. He said the landing hurt a lot. The bubbles in the pool really didn't help very much. Okay, so what did we learn here? I made a sequence out of it. He didn't jump sideways. When you don't have the ground to push on, what I'm doing right now, a really weak imitation version of a golf swing, you know, weight shift and a turn and a weight shift and a turn, you can't do it. You can't. You turn the opposite way. So he swung back, nothing to push on, the body went that way. He swung through, nothing to push on, the body goes the other way. So all the stuff that you do in the golf swing, that you teach in the golf swing, at some point, you have to use the ground to do it. Even simple, make a turn, make another turn. Ooh, boy, there's a lot of people that said this over the years. You can't just hold on. All you have to do is just hold on to the club and swing it back and then swing it through, and centrifugal force will line the club up and square the club face up. No, it won't. And by the way, you're centrifugal force. You're the person inputting the inward force that's making the outward force, and that inward force coming from your body, which is a little, ain't much. So most of it is you using your hands and arms, assisted by the body, assisted by the ground, turning the corner inward to make the club. At some point it picks up some speed and there's a big pull. And Art was showing us that at dinner the other night, and everybody knows about that, but it's not gravity. Chris jumped off of that board, gravity was working right away. Your centrifugal force, you gotta create the centrifugal. And your pivot isn't gonna be enough. Okay, let's see. I asked this question all over the world, nobody answers it. I don't think it's that controversial. There's an IKEA model with two little blue painter tape stickers on it for an upper center, in quotation marks, and a lower center, in double quotation marks. So, how many people like the little IKEA model swing on the left? How many would rather have your students do the one on the left? See, nobody answers. That's baloney. I think that's baloney. And how many people like the one on the right? Okay, so we got some people. See, that's about what happens. There's about 10% of people vote. Nobody wants to take a position. They're the exact same pose of the IKEA model. I got the IKEA model. I moved the camera, and you got stacked centers on the left and too much lean to the right for some people's taste, and it's the exact same thing. So if you think you can take a picture that was taken in 1940 or 1950 and have any idea what shot was hit, where it was hit in the face, and where the cameraman was lined up, and let's just say you knew everything. Let's just say we were going to do it right now. We were going to have McKinney hit a 6-iron shot. Where do we put the camera? 90 to the target line? Sounds good. Why not? Face on view, right? But Billy hits down on it about 5 degrees. And he has to swing left about 3.5 degrees. So his 5 degrees produces a 0. Let's say he was trying to hit a straight shot. So since he's actually swinging 3.5 degrees to the left, should the camera be over here? You got me? So again, myriad of problems using 2D images to evaluate the golf swing. Unless you know the science to start with. We had this battle for 2 years and then they changed their mind. You're not going to hit it further by keeping your hips accelerating through the ball. It just doesn't work that way. Don't try to do it. I'm not going to waste any more time. Trying to get all the pow out there. I mean, I play music for a living. You think I know how to use a mic. A late hit won't always increase a golfer's speed. If you have a decent double pendulum model, you can see this. In search for the perfect swing, for crying out loud. Got a little argument going on the internet. I do that a lot. Somebody's got to do it. 1969, the book was published. They got a bunch of scientists, and they showed you how if you didn't apply any torque in the middle of the swing, you could hit it pretty good, line the club up for impact, probably be a little weak. You applied force at the right time in the middle, you delay, you get a little more delay of the, the club lining up with the left arm, and it would go a little further. And then you could push a little longer, too long, and delay it too much, and hit it shorter. You'd have more look of lag, but you'd hit it shorter. Trust me, not always on every golfer. I mean, my 3 best playing golfers must be pretty good. I put them in my bio that Billy read out. Ain't one of them an extreme lagger. So trust me, they all want to hit it as far as they can hit it. Lawson Little there on the right, Tom Watson on the left. Not much of a trigger delay guy and still can play at pretty advanced age. Whew, this occupied the internet for 3 years. If you swing straight, if you aim straight, you swing straight, and you have a really, really good camera, like one of those cameras that Nick Arthur showed me at Callaway, really high-end cameras, and the club face was perfectly square at impact, or in the middle of impact, or wherever the heck you want it to be square. You swung dead straight. You got one of those line drawing programs, and you put the camera in exactly the right position, which will never be right, by the way. It'll always lie. Cameras always lie. I look good on camera. You can see I don't look that good. If you swing dead straight and hit down on the ball, that down on the ball, going down that arc, skews the path to the right, and if the face is square and the path goes to the right, I don't have to tell you where the ball goes, 4 left. So a lot of people thought you could swing straight, hit a ball on the way down, and make the ball go straight, and you can't. Another thing that you can see in video that's, okay, so the problem with video, right? So we have, let's say somebody sitting in the middle right here, a nice looking guy in black. What's your name, sir? Yeah. What's your first name?
Jim.
Hey, Jim. So Jim has the camera. Jim has this camera. Right? Well, I just want y'all to see, looking on this side of the room. So somebody over here, we won't beg anybody for their name. Right, okay, so. But Jim has the camera for Luke Donald right here. So the frame of reference for these 2 pictures is the lens that's over here. So doesn't his hands go down from the frame on the left to the next frame on the right? Yeah, it does. To the camera, but to the torso, which is what I'm talking about in this particular slide, the arm goes up. In almost every good golf swing, not don't even use the word great, the left arm goes up because the torso is going down, and the arm kind of maintains more height than it loses. The arm goes up to the torso to change the directions. I use that teaching this weekend at Costa Mesa more than any other thing I'll show you, because it was high-end players who don't come over the top. If they do anything wrong, they drop the club too much. And one way or the other, I didn't explain it to them all the way that slide's showing you, keeping the hands up in the air a little bit for a good player can be the big difference. So you're looking at video, you're looking at a frame of reference of the lens of the camera. Most people don't know this, and this is real basic stuff to the scientists and people that have 3D machines like AMM or Rob Neal system, or now Gears is the latest, greatest thing. Hand speed peaks way back here. A lot of bad shots in golf cause from somebody thinking that their hands have to keep going fast all the way to impact. If you do that, I think that would be one way you could call somebody a handle dragger or a handle pusher, right? You're not getting the speed to the club. There'd be other ways too. That term really, really will get you in a lot of fights, handle dragger. We thought low point was always under the left shoulder. Low point can pretty much be almost anywhere with a flat left wrist.
No, low point in a good swing or low point in any swing?
And low point in any swing, well, I mean a good swing. If you missed the ball by this far, probably. But you can, what we thought was if you had a flat left wrist, great question. If you had a flat left wrist, that would always bottom out right by the left shoulder. The left shoulder's moving, and the club's also uncocking, and you're changing side bends, and you can balance all that thing out and make a pretty darn flat spot at the bottom of the swing. That's what Chris Como is doing his dissertation on for his Masters, and low point can be, I have a slide a little bit later, almost anywhere. It could be on the right foot and past the left foot with a flat left wrist, you know, whatever you want to call a flat left wrist. Let's say what Middlecoff is doing right here. One of our first trips in this move toward the movement was to go see Paul Wood at Ping, and Ping Man, the acceleration profile for a 6-iron, I'm sure it's this way at Callaway, great golf robot there too, is not the same as a driver. And just to simplify the darn thing, you know, is basically if you took, all it has is an arm and uncocks by gravity, and there's a gear that pretty much 1 degree uncocking is 1 degree of closing, and then this rotor, you know, turns. You can't just turn the thing on and just move the arm like this and hit a golf ball that goes straight. You have to you have to slow down the arm a little bit, because that's what happens in the golf swing. And you have to do that more with a driver. So you probably all figured that out, and you know, I'm just telling you something you already know, which that's a lot of times when we learn from a scientist, that's what we go, caught that. So with an iron, with let's say a short iron, you're pretty much turning your chest through, relatively speaking, more than you are with a 6-iron, and a pretty decent amount more than you are with a driver. Just to line the club up the same. Not that that's the way you would play, is try to line them up the same through the bag, but helps to know this swing the same with every club thing, blown. Okay. I bought my first video camera in 1985, Sony Handycam, first one-piece unit, right? Boy, it had terrible shutter speed. Woo. The V9 had 1/1000, man. I couldn't wait to go buy that. People started buying video cameras a lot around 1990, and there was a proliferation of line drawing programs, and people started drawing this line on the back, or the spine, or what they thought was the spine. These body guys in the back right here probably going, spine doesn't look like that. I said, no, you're right. Doesn't look dang thing like that. So that position that golfer's in right there, if you go get it, and look, I'm 52, I'm no young timer anymore. You go get one of the older guys in this room who's been around a long time, there were nobody in golf playing the tour in the early 60s, let's say, just to throw a number out there, that set up anything like that person right there. With butt out like this and trying to hold the head, and it just didn't exist. That existed because somebody thought, oh, spine angle, let's draw a line, and I'm gonna hold my chin up. That's one of the first things Ben ever taught us, you know. He said, look, at Jack Nicklaus, you could put a baby on his neck so he can look out of his eyeballs at the ball. It's a really good idea, but just know that if nothing else, there is a pelvis angle of rotation and there's a thorax angle. If nothing else, draw 2 lines. So, and then here's that video, first video. My buddy Sean Webb works at David Tom's great practice facility. You'll be hearing a lot about it. I'm sure David will be a Ryder Cup captain at some point. There'll be all these things. Woo, state of the art. 265 is a great place. 60-acre dedicated practice facility. Sean's the director of instruction there, and he is standing on a device that Dr. Mike Duffy from Penn State came up with, and put a picture of me in the middle of it because I'm not smart, not because I am. I couldn't figure out the rotational torques at the feet that show up in this graph right here on the $25,000 swing catalyst plate. There's also like a $4,000 swing catalyst plate that shows you the center of pressure only, but this is some rotational stuff on it. So let's see if I click this, if it plays. Let's go back and do it again. They're going to try to show you over here if you can't see it on this one. There's a lot of rotational torque at the feet. It turns out, you stand here and you start making a backswing and you start turning to your right. To do that, you have to push left on the ground to turn to your right, because the ground's not moving. And then way before you stop your backswing, or make it look like you change direction, you're already twisting your feet as a unit the other way, and way before you hit it, you're twisting them back this way. You have to. It's just how it works. And I couldn't even understand it with a PhD explained it to me. So they had me stand underneath somebody and hold something that was off the ground while somebody made a swing, and I became the ground, you know, because I'm holding the, otherwise he looked like Sean on the Manzella plate, and I held this little device, and I felt it, and I finally understood it. But you have to know. So before we get out of this slide, and that's like kind of the first part of this thing right here, these 20 questions. Ground reaction forces. I have it later, but since I think this is a good time. If I stood perfectly up against this wall, which I can't do without falling, I don't want to fall. If you see some really non-golf, like we hate, one of my pet peeves, I have about 100 of them, golf pros who can't pose a lick. Really kind of off-putting. First thing I would look for if I was hiring somebody, if you can't pose, how the hell are you going to teach anybody anything? So if you see some very un-golf-like poses out of me, I had major shoulder surgery 16 weeks ago. Tomorrow, and they put 9 anchors in there, so it's kind of, I need that twist bar. I'm going to look into buying one at the end. Okay, so if I stand up against a wall, straight up, and I hold my arm straight up, better not get too close to the edge. I hold the club straight up, and all I do is go this way. I have massive rotational torques at the feet. I actually slipped a little, like Sean had right there. Very little center of pressure movement back and forth. If I stand up against the wall and put the club like this, I swing the club straight up the wall, straight down the wall like this, and I don't turn, but I just kind of like keep my booty and my back on the wall. I'd have massive center of pressure shifting and very little rotational torque. So just know, you're not teaching anybody to swing like either one of those 2 examples. So you're going to have rotational torques at the feet, and you're going to have center of pressure shifting right away. And the idea that you can make a swing and not shift your weight, which is your center of mass. Your mass is your weight, and the center of it's your center of mass. And not shift your pressure is just not accurate. So where do I stand time-wise? I know just so I, out. Okay, so ball flight science. That's called, I'm going to play it again. It's called forward modeling. They draw a model, and they punch it all in and say, if the ball got hit, here's what it would do, right? So the forward dynamics, kind of neat. It's on the internet, and just first engineering, whatever, you can find that. It's kind of a neat little thing you might use. I hate this part of my talk, but I don't go anywhere, and everybody knows all this ball flight stuff, so I have to do it anyway, so I'm sure I'm going to bore y'all with tears right here. I'm already doing that, so wish me luck. Paul Wood sent me a picture, not this picture. I lost it in the great flood of '05. We had 11 foot of water, 9 foot ceilings, nothing survived. But it looked exactly like this picture. He sent me a picture of the ping head of a shot, the ping man hitting off of a tee, and it looked like that. The shaft was leaning backwards at impact. Because at that time, I think Ping liked the idea of the club being more or less straight up and down at impact, at least in their testing. And, well, every shaft is in lead at impact. They're bending forward. So that's why that shaft is bent forward at impact in that picture. And because it didn't fit what I was teaching at the time, I didn't show the picture to anybody. So there's a lot of that going on right now in golf. We're pushing this movement towards science, and they got people that don't want to even go get their stuff measured. Folks, let me just tell you this. You can know everything that Sandy Claus doesn't know and teach a million different golf schools. This stuff that I'm presenting today is method agnostic. This has nothing to do with whether you're going to teach somebody a strong grip or a weak grip or a flat backswing or an upright backswing or a whole bunch of shift or some shift, no chance. A lot of lag, no lag. You teach whatever you want, and you could be, ball flight, tree. We found out Dr. Warren didn't do this. Somebody was responsible. They haven't owned up to it yet. It wasn't right. No big deal. See how fast I went there? Okay. The D plane. You heard that? Okay. So the D plane is short for the descriptive plane. It was in that book. That's the second edition, that cover right there. I used to have a bootlegger account. Most learned golf pros back in the day, pre-internet did. And I got the sucker as soon as it came out, Greg. I mean, I couldn't wait to read it. And I read that chapter on the D-plane and I have no idea what that man was talking about. That's what he was talking about. He was talking about the ball is basically going to fly for a lot of its flight, pretty much, at least theoretically, on this plane. And you can explain it really easy to a golfer. And you can get famous for knowing the D-plane. It's my buddy Joe Mayo. So, that's me in Golf Magazine right there. That ball did not hook around that tree like that. That is what they call in the magazine business artistic license. Why would I hook that ball around that tree and I could have just hit it right here? So, the flag, hey, y'all don't laugh. Okay, the flag, I just need better material. The flag is directly behind this tree. So look at how far right that path has to be to have the face there. Now, one of the things we've learned, and I've definitely, the next time I go to Callaway, somebody was in a very important meeting, so I couldn't ask a bunch of these questions, but they're starting to see that the ball is not really ever starting like 85% toward the face with any club. It's less than that. So I taught everybody 85. When I started doing this presentation, I had 85 in it. It might still be in the presentation. It doesn't look like it's right. There's nothing wrong with not knowing everything. There's nothing wrong with admitting you're wrong. I've made a brand out of it. And here I sit.
What are they guessing? 65.
Yeah, maybe even less, slightly less than that. So like low 60s or something. I don't know, I'd like to ask the Callaway guys about that. Royal Plus 6, Goofy Ball, 76 came out. They hit 2 balls at one time with a block of steel in the test that was on TV. A little block of steel moved about an inch, boop, went 100 miles an hour, 12 degrees aloft, and the ball flew 250 yards, and the Royal, of course, went 6 yards further than the Titleist. And there it sits in the museum. Titleist is, they own the business, ball business. So, Frederick Tustin. So the point of that, why am I even saying that? Because the ball only knows about that inch, doesn't know about all this Jim Furyk stuff up here. Okay. Our friend Frederick, invented TrackMan, used to do Doppler radar military stuff, was on a ship, had a driver, rubber tee, and a couple balls. Now, why would a guy testing missiles shot out of submarines, stand on an aircraft carrier, have a golf ball and a rubber tee, because he likes golf? Yeah. But turns out those missiles are pretty expensive. How expensive is one of those missiles that go out of space and come back in? Are about
Tens of millions of dollars.
tens of millions of dollars. Golf ball, not that expensive. So he would hit because I guess at some point, one of those companies shot one of those missiles, told them fire in the hole, and the U.S. Navy shot it out of a submarine and went in the atmosphere, came out of the atmosphere, back into the ground, hit the target, and they said, what did the radar say? Wasn't on. Oh boy. So he hit golf balls and the radar would see the golf ball and somebody said, there may be a business in that, and it turns out there was. Okay, so how are those 2 vectors that are supposed to predict ball flight on a perfectly struck shot, which happens about a low percentage of the time? The bottom vector, this one going at the green over here. Okay, so this is 12 green at Augusta. I wasn't there to take a picture with a color camera and Sam Snead in black and white. That's Photoshop, folks. If you ever need any Photoshop work done, send it to me. I'll do it for funsies. So if you've been to Augusta, and I know these boys have, Billy and them, they go every year, downhill from that tee to the green. So that's why I use that picture. So this bottom vector is the angle of attack and the club path. So the path, let's say, was 4 degrees inside out and 4 degrees down, or let's say 5 degrees down, and you took a little pointer and go, okay, here's the pointer, pointing here, to go 4 degrees down and 5 degrees down and 4 to the right, and it would have pointed like 25 feet to the right of the hole at 12 at Augusta. That's the bottom vector. The top vector is a lot easier. It's just normal to the club face, lie angle tool, right, at impact. So the ball starts somewhere in the middle, mostly toward this, not as close as I have it here. Need to redo this picture, and curves of that. So Snead could have swung straight, hit down on it 6 degrees, 5 degrees, had the face square, and hit into roses. Lots of people do that. I watch TV, and I've been to the tournament. David's a particularly good iron player. I have not seen him hit that green yet, even in the practice round, first range. Normal to the club face, you've all seen this lie angle tool. I did this once in one of these talks, I did the paper and I drew the line on it and I gave it to everybody and I bored them with that too. So look, if the club's going down and out, if the club's going on a plane, club head, not the whole club, we'll talk about that in a second, it's going down and out till it gets to the bottom of the swing. It's going up and in after that. So if the ball gets hit somewhere besides the bottom, it skews the path one way or the other. Count Yogi. A lot of good Count Yogi stuff on the internet now. The path of the club head is sort of an ellipse. It's not as big an ellipse as that, because our friend right there with the camera was standing like this. He set the camera up on a tripod, and Count Yogi made a swing and with a strobe light going, and it looks more elliptical than it is, because it turns out the camera should have been up there somewhere shooting through the plane. It would have looked a little bit more circular. But it is an ellipse somewhat, and it does sort of have a little dent in it at the bottom. The first presentation at the 1988 first PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit was a lady professor who presented on the flat spot. Boy, I wish I would have known to ask her a bunch of questions. It's important. The functional swing plane. Turns out, when we first started doing this little project, Mike Finney would say, well, what are we going to do when no scientists say that and no scientists say that something else? What are we going to do? Well, when the other thing that also happened, that doesn't happen very much, by the way. The other thing that happens is separately scientists come up with the same thing for different reasons. Now you have something. So the radar machines that are popular, Flight Scope and TrackMan, measure the club head plane from about here to here, down below the waist. Dr. Kwan did research on, is anything in the golf swing really a plane? Turns out, that is sort of the club head from that waist high or just below waist high or parallel to the ground to parallel to the ground. It's a little video that plays right here. Sergio, club head stays on the plane. You can see the shaft at some point is on it. At some point the shaft probably isn't on it, because I can keep this club on this plane and change the orientation of the shaft, and that club head was on that plane the whole time. Boring stuff, really, just totally boring. That slide's useless. That's Bubba Watson. Okay, trying to get somewhere here. Horizontal gear effect. You hit the ball in the heel. Okay, heel what? You just heel? No. The center of gravity of that golf club, and that 4 inches of shaft, and that glue, and that ferrule, and Nick Arthur pointed out that the glue and the ferrule and the 4 or 5 inches of shaft will probably move that club by itself center of gravity about like that. That's called a smidge back in New Orleans. It's really not that big. It's like a piece of powdered donut dust at the beignet shop. Okay, if the ball gets hit in the heel, slows the heel down or speeds the toe up, depending on your frame of reference, the ball picks up some fade spin. Y'all do that, right? Hit it on the toe, ball rolls toward the heel, picks up some draw spin. Vertical gear effect kind of works the same way. Hit it high in the face, it adds loft, kind of makes the ball want to roll down the face a little bit, takes some spin off, that's good for a driver. Hit it low on the face, de-lofts the face a little bit, ball goes lower, it spins a lot more. So when you blade that wedge and it spins really good, you can always say, hey, I planned it that way. Bunch of yahoos went out in the desert, thought they were going to make Frederick Tuxton look like like he didn't know what he was doing, and they didn't realize that if you have a driver with bulge and roll, which they pretty much all do, 1/2 an inch from the center of the club with an 11-degree bulge the face is 5.2 degrees open, even if the middle of the face and the head are square. So, know that when you're talking about club face with a club that doesn't have a flat face, like a wood. One of the things you're getting a little buzz on the internet right now, talking about the path of the club. The middle of the club head can be going straight. Well, I say the middle of the mass of the club head can be going straight on a driver, and the face closes enough, and the point of impact was going left. So really, TrackMan might see a zero path, Flight Scope might see a zero path, but the actual path was a little bit left. This is boring y'all to death. Center of gravity, ask the Callaway guys. Okay. 2,400 to 3,000 degrees, don't worry about the slide, that's just to remind me of the numbers. 2,400 to 3,000 degrees, Alex D over there at Fujikura said that's the rate of closure at the head, through the head, at impact of most tour players. And we've asked a few other people, and they got another Enzo at Ping, and it looks like you get the biggest part of the bell curve, 2,200 to 3,200 degrees per second. There's no 1,000s. There's nobody slowing this face down. There was one guy on the internet a couple years ago thinking that you could have the face close and then like muscle contract and open it. That sucker is closing, and it's closing quick. And if you don't think it is, you're swimming. Now, it's gonna close faster if it hit a ball of Gillette foamy than it hit a golf ball, but it's still gonna close a lot. Degree would be a good thing to tell somebody. How much does it close while it's on the ball? A degree or so?
Right.
Yes.
So the ball stabilizes it, it keeps it straighter longer.
It just slows it down. Just imagine, you know, if I was doing this, that rotated a certain amount, and you put a blocking dummy right there, with even a light one, like a kid's punching thing, it would slow it down a little bit. That's David Toms on the 7-iron shot, trying to get the heck out of this ball flight stuff as quick as possible. 3 Photoshop golf balls from the ball. I can assure you, I saw it Tuesday, his putting stroke is not that online at that point in the swing, because there's not all the speed to stabilize it. There's not going to be as much body movement to make a flat spot. So, kind of interesting, you know. I wouldn't have thought that a couple years ago. I'd have had that club, man. I'd have had that club way over here somewhere coming in from the inside. Not so much. So this is David, front face going through the ball. Here's a little guy named Manzella. Not too bad. Look at the face, pretty square. A couple balls for a ball. Face is pretty square. A couple balls, pretty square at impact. Pretty barely closes after impact. That ain't bad, right? That's not bad for a little teaching pro, right? Oh, wait. That was on a shot. Then I gripped the club like this. Squatted down like Tiger about to hit a lob shot. And swung like this as hard as I could, around myself, opening the face as much as I could, and closing as much as I could. I got proof. There's the shot. Look at how inside that was, and how open it was. Look how back to the inside that was, and how close that was. But the middle part, because, I've actually played golf, and I know how to like balance it all out in the middle. So you can chase this low rate of closure that we've been arguing about on the internet for 3 years all you want. If it helps your students, it helps you, do it. Are you really going to get a lot of closure rate change from a golf lesson on a pretty good swing? Probably not. You might take that 30 handicap slicer who has 1,500 degrees rate of closure and make them have 2,800 and they can actually play golf. So, my first time on Enzo. This is kind of interesting. All that other stuff really kind of wasn't. Here we go. Some good stuff. I hit a shot. My face rotation, right in the middle of that Alex D thing, 2,771 degrees. Handle rotation, that's a word that Enzo used, and they should have asked me first. I'm good at naming things. That means the bottom of the grip going past the top of the grip. People think it means twist. Doesn't. Bottom of the grip going past the top of the grip. 2074. The face was rotating at last parallel, was rotating down here, 2771. Last parallel, 868. Now since I did that test, and that's 4 different shots I hit, we'll talk about here in a second, my buddy Grant Wade and his tour players, Chris Como and his tour players, and a whole bunch of other friends and their tour players, and some of them were pretty much tour players, have been on Enzo, or something like Enzo, And, you know, everybody's club is like, you know, 7, 8, 900 right here, around the club head, through the club head, 20, 6, 7, 800 right here. You can't, the theory, there's like a theory going on in golf, you know, close the face a lot here so that you can just not close it too much going through the ball. 3 times faster from, good luck with that. If it works for you, keep teaching it. Okay, so I had a couple PhDs in the room, 4, and my little weak bachelor degree from University of New Orleans, and we looked at that 2074 number, how fast the bottom of the grip caught and went past the top of the grip. And we had Angel Cabrera come up, and he had 2450 of that number. And Sasha McKenzie did an actual back of an envelope calculation that if little Brian Manzella, Chalmette, Louisiana, could get my handle rotation number up to 2450, I could go from 102.5 miles an hour to 116, low 116s. Cabrera was in the mid 117s. So I was almost doing some things as fast as him, and he hits it like 80 by me. So what do you think I tried to do on the next ball? What would you try to do? Dang it, I'm gonna try to make the bottom of that grip, catching past the top of that grip. And you know what? In one swing, I did. Not anywhere near as much as I wanted to, dang it. I wanted to be up there in Cabrera land, that's the fantasy. I moved it from 2074, 108 degrees a second faster, I got 4 miles an hour club head speed. Don't know how many good players you've seen on a device that measures club head speed pretty good. I'm pretty sure Enzo is half decent at it. TrackMan's pretty good at it too. You just don't get 4 miles an hour out of anybody. So you can teach the bottom of the grip staying behind the top grip all you want. You're slowing the club down. Plain and simple. Also try to swing square to square to extreme. Gripped it like Ed Fiore. Well, I made Fiore blush and closed my stance and kept the club face closed, you know, square to the target as I could. Went to the top, went down as square as I could, tried to have it square like this, and literally spun around, hit the wall, and fell down over there. The 3 scientists, they paid no attention to me. They were looking at the numbers. That's a good scientist, right on. Heck with him, we go get another guy to do the next test. Roll him around there, Eddie, he'll be all right to fire him on. Right, so, wait a minute here. This is a misprint. 2771 stock swing. 27. I slowed it down. What percentage is that? 0.1. So I'm not saying, look, I'm not a big closer any guy. You know, I'm not closing the face. I'm not teaching people to super close the face. But I'm just saying. And then I had some yahoos say, well, you didn't know how to do it. He wasn't there, man. That was an impressive swing on video. It looked like Tiger Woods trying to slice around the Empire State Building. Didn't change my handle rotation number, didn't change that number at last parallel, did swing fast, almost killing myself. Nice to know. Then I did an open to close to the extreme. So it turns out, hey, you can do that faster, and look what that changed, the big number change here. So all I did on the open to close to the extreme is I didn't close it as much here. So instead of the 800s, it was in the 600s, and I really closed the heck out of it there. Ain't nobody in this room, I don't think, teaching anybody to do that. So the point of all of that is, pretty much, this rate of closure thing, I think, is big white elephant, and it's not a good idea, folks. It looks good on video, maybe. You might be able to sell a lesson. Not what the best players are doing. Cabrera is making me look like I'm doing that, and I'm trying not to, darn it. And in 2 years, I've gotten a lot better. When the shoulder heals, I'll report back to you. Oh, radar take-homes. Okay, we'll see a lot of radar later on, but I like this slide to a certain extent. Okay, so compression equals spin-off. We know that. Zeros. So Justin Pageant works for TrackMan. He spent a lot of time as the tour rep, and now he's moved on to bigger things in the company. He's been asked this question first by me. Well, I'm not saying I'm the first person to ask him, but I never heard anybody else ask him when I asked him. And then I heard 100 people ask him in seminars. So Justin, what do the tour players do? They hit draws, they fades, they straight balls. His answer is, it seems to me, from the best of my knowledge, having a couple of 100 guys in front of me hit balls on TrackMan, about a third of the tour hits a draw, about a third of the tour hits it pretty straight, about a third of the tour fades it. Propaganda would say, well, you got to do one thing. You know, you got to just draw the ball. So baloney. David Thomas hit a fade and won $40 million doing it. Didn't hurt Hogan when he figured out how to do it. It didn't hurt Nicholas Ennie either. And straight balls, which David hits a lot of, by the way, 00 straight balls, 0 spin axis, 0-0. Billy McKinney put a couple of those up yesterday. Those zeros are just as easy as any other number. There's a famous teacher that always likes to discuss with me that straight shot is a joke. You never do it. People don't do it. It's impossible to learn to do it. Folks, I can't beat anybody. Give me about 3 months for this thing. I'll put up some zeros for you. It's pretty easy to hit a straight ball. I mean, crying out loud. You take a 40 handicapper that's swinging 15 degrees outside in, you can just aim him over here and twist the club in his hand. He might put up a 0. It's just a number. It's no different and no easier than any other number. So if your shot is a push draw and you want to have a 5-degree inside out or a 3-degree open face, but remember, close to the path face, and that's your shot, it's just as hard to put that number up over and over and over and over again as to put up double zeros. And what was funny is at the last PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit, which was in Orlando in the big ballroom that they have at the Orange County Convention Center, it was really more of a coaching summit, not too much of a mechanic summit, but there were a couple of golf balls hit. Stacy Lewis, who at the time was ranked #1 in the world, hit a couple of shots, and Ian Poulter did an extremely good. If you could ever get Ian Poulter to talk at anything that you have anything to do with, he's not anything like you. He was awesome. It was one of the best player talks I've ever heard. The first shot Stacy Lewis hit, 0.1 path, 0.2 face. The first shot that Ian Poulter hit, this is in a net, folks. They can't even see what they're aiming at. 0.4 left path, 0.1 right face. Straight balls are just as easy as any other number. One of the things we'll see outside is probably the most important number when you're teaching pretty good players, and unless we recruit some bad players, most of you folks are good players, and I'll help as many of you as I can today, try to show you how all this stuff gets into action, because this is boring this way, right? Is angle of attack is a big deal. It can help you determine whether somebody should swing a certain amount inside out or a certain amount outside in. We'll leave the name out here. A person stood up at a national teaching summit and said, I can see no reason. I can't think of one, and matter of fact, this is how they said it. I can't think of one reason that you would hit down on every club in the bag and then try to hit up on a driver. And I'd really like to talk in a national PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit. I still haven't, and I'm not going to do it this time coming up either. No sour grapes. And I'm sitting on my hands, desperately want to jump up and say, my daddy used to have this yardstick behind the refrigerator, it's about like this. I can give you 20 of these. There's your reasons, all 20 of them. So if you get somebody that's just barely hitting down on it a couple degrees, and you can get them to maintain the loft pretty much and hit up on it a couple degrees, you can get them 20 yards faster and you can have them write the check out for being happy. So that's one really darn good reason.
Brian, do you have a good reason why exactly that shows up? I mean, why 20 yards shows up with hitting up?
Yeah, well, you know, you have with a given golf ball at a given speed, right? You have an optimal launch angle. Notice I didn't say golf club. Ball at a given speed. They got a thing at Callaway. What's it called, Nick? That thing that spins the ball. And what do y'all call y'all spinner? Like the jugs machine for a golf ball? Yeah, it doesn't have a name. It's top secret. Yeah, with that stamp deal. Certain amount of ball speed, you program in a certain amount of, you move the jug machine up, we'll call it the jug machine, and you spin it a certain amount, it'll go a certain distance. And to do that optimal, you know, you hear this number tossed around, 17 degrees of launch and 1700 spin. Maybe that's extreme a little bit, but let's just say a pretty reasonable 14 or 15 degrees of launch and 2000 spin would be great. You could get that pretty easy hitting up on it a couple degrees. Hitting down on a couple degrees, it can be done, it's just not that easy. So it's just easier to hit up on it and do it. And to be honest with you, I don't understand why you wouldn't hit up on it. I mean, you're hitting a 6-iron and you've got the ball maybe just a little left the middle, most good players that I've seen, even out on tour, kind of right here on top of it, you're trying to kind of stay on top of it. You hit down on it 3 or 4 degrees. Now all of a sudden you got a driver, you got a wider stance, got the ball up on your front foot, swinging really hard, your ground reaction force vector is pushing up toward your ear, that's a slide later. And behind it like this, so tour players look like an impact. I don't know how the heck you hit down on it. I think you're doing something goofy to hit down on it. All my students, by the time I work with them, they're hitting up on their driver angle line.
Right. Can you go back 2 slides? There. Tumble versus swipe VSD. Can you hit that real quick?
Yes. So you would, there's that functional swing plane. So the club head plane from here to here, not the shaft, the club head. Called, is it called? What is it called? It's called vertical swing plane.
VSD.
Used to be called vertical swing plane in TrackMan. It's just called swing plane now. I think Flight Scope still uses vertical swing plane. Okay. You would think David Tom's pretty upright backswing, kind of stays on top of it. Most of the downswing comes right through his right shoulder pretty much to the ball. Would have a number, let's call that number X. And then Sergio, flatter backswing, drops it even flatter, comes into the ball, would have a number less than X, right? For sure. That Sergio's swing plane number would be lower than David's. It's higher than David's. Why is that? Because our buddy Kevin Shields, who's part of the movement, I don't know about the term the movement, but anyway. It sounds good in the car. You say it's one of 120 golf pros. It's like the project sounds a lot better to me. Anyway, so Kevin Shields, one of our guys. You're either going to lay the club down early or you're going to lay it down late. You're going to do like David, Jack Nicklaus, you're going to stay on top of it, you're going to kind of lay it down late, or you're going to do like Ricky Fowler and Sergio or Ben Hogan, you're going to lay it down early and then you're going to jump on top of it. So if you lay it down early, when you jump on top of it, we call tumble, you start tumbling, club gets more on line, comes out, and plane is actually more upright than the guy who's right on top of it and has to get under it at the bottom. That lowers the club and gets it more inside the line a little bit. And that's why you can get the opposite effect of...
I'm curious your terminology. What do you meant by it?
Yeah, so what do I have there? Tumble versus swipe. So this is the tumble, like Sergio can tumble it, and David kind of has to lay it down like this and kind of swipe it a little bit. Now, interestingly, I don't know about Sergio, but when David plays his worst, his number's lower, and when it's higher, it's better. So,
Wait, you mean he tumbles more when he plays better?
yes, absolutely. Pretty much at the tour level, or even like, almost everybody in here has probably got some good players. This is kind of like a problem for a good player. Getting that club head too inside, too dumped too early, too much trouble. The odds of me not having to fix that, and when we do the live lessons out there, is 0. Got a bunch of club pros in there. Okay. All right. Shaft bending mode, just so you know, there's our friend Sasha McKenzie. He jumped over a car once when he was in college for a beer. Look it up on the internet. Only reason I say that is we were talking with Johnny Ortega today. It seems like the guys that I wound up associating with are all athletes somehow. That's the only thing, because otherwise, why would any of these people associate with somebody like me? Because I was a pretty decent athlete. So it turns out somebody says something to do in the golf swing, and I test it out, and it doesn't feel like an athletic movement, I just kind of junk it. And I did that for 31 years, and I attract people who think that way. And some of them are scientists. Sasha jumped over a car. So if you bent the club this way, toe up. If I bend it this way, as you look at it, address toe up, bend the toe up, bend it down. Don't do anything with it. Bend it into lead. That's the club head forward to where the handle's pointing. Bend it back. That's lag. Just so you know, that's what a normal shaft bending mode looks like in the swing. And I'll try to make sense of it. Most times when you're in a talk like this, graphs get the glaziest eyed look of anything. This line over here on our left is start a downswing. Impact is where the line ends. Why they don't have another line like this, I have no idea. Maybe they think this club suffices. we're gonna talk about toe up, toe down. That's the dotted line first. So, you change direction. The toe is kind of hanging down. I mean, Bobby Jones hangs it a lot. Tustin doesn't hang it too much, but none of them like this. When you change direction, it bends toe up. So this line goes up. Now it starts recovering. But then right around here is where you start adding some torque to the club. That's where we're going to kind of go in a second with this presentation. And it bends a little more toe up just for a second, and then it recovers, and everybody pretty much in this room knows it's toe down by the ball. Okay, lag and lead. It actually bends slightly in the change of direction into lead, more and more and more into lead as you're starting to put some torque on the club, and then as you put the torque on the club and you start rotating the face, now the shaft bends into lag. That's this doodad right here, and then right about here, it starts zoom, and it goes past the handle. Goes into lead, into lag when you start torquing the club, and back into lead at the bottom. Well, like Ben Doyle said, make a knife work like a knife and a fork work like a fork. In other words, if you know what the shaft is doing, you might try to get somebody to do it, instead of like we were doing, getting people to offend the shaft. Dr. Stephen Nesbitt, I am not up here without people like Ben Doyle and Greg McCatton, and I'm definitely not up here without Stephen Nesbitt. Of all the scientists that I've learned stuff that you will see me use today on the lesson tee or would have saw at Costa Mesa Saturday and Sunday, I got most of it from this guy. Brilliant, brilliant guy. Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania. Look up Easton, Pennsylvania on a map, and when you get real close, because it's a little bitty city, you will see another city right next to it, Far Hills, New Jersey. Yes. So when Frank Thomas was a R&D guy at the USGA, and they were worried about clubs and balls, and they were right, right? They were also worried about the golf swing, and he was a wonder kid, because I remember when Mike Finney said, I talked to Stephen Nesbitt, I said, he's still alive? I figured Stephen Nesbitt was like 90. Stephen Nesbitt's my age, he was just like a brilliant guy, and they hired him to do all this research, and it's like this much black ops. But this much you can get on the internet. So if you just search Stephen Nesbitt, research papers on golf. There's about 3 or 4 of them on the internet. Look at those scientific papers, folks. I ain't lying to you. They're heavy lifting. I might have to read it 20 times, but absolutely brilliant stuff. So a little Italian guy from New Orleans, like I said, I like to quote myself, said, all you have is your hand path, the force along that path, and the torque about that shaft, and here's what I mean. I've been playing golf for 41 years. I have taught the club some stuff. Watch, let me show you. Okay? Make a swing. Got me? It's not gonna do anything. So, how does it do something? You grab it with your hands. There's no idea about anything else. Your hands make a path, usually going and coming. I guess you could just come forward. So you have a hand path, there's force on that hand path, not always in the same direction the hands are going in. You say, well, what does that mean? Well, I got force going in the direction this wall is pointing, and now I'm going to slowly bend it inward. So even though my hands went down the wall, can't really do anything else, I started pushing much more this way. So you have force along that path, and that includes speed, and then torque, rotationals about that path with this grip. That's all you have. Everything you do to hit a shot and everything you're telling your students to do so they can hit a shot is to change one of those or all of them. Period. No debate. Okay, so, video. This is somebody asked on the internet yesterday, nice kid, Nathan, he said, well, how do you tell the force and torques? One day there'll be a machine you can buy. It's not that hard a math, so somebody just needs to be in the right place at the right time and we can help somebody do it. You know what to look for, you can start kind of seeing it. So I use Ernie Els here because he does a very good job of it. So the blue or aqua, depending on your angle with the light here, Those little dots are going to be the midpoint of his hands from the top of the swing all the way past impact. The arrows, which are kind of going along the path early and then slowly bending in, like I was going along the path early, slowly bending in. And then we know that good players, especially ones that don't try to keep the club from lining up, have almost all, like 99% of all the fours, normal, I call it going normal, I'll show you what that means in a second, but 90 degrees to that hand path at impact or near impact, and you can see those arrows starting to get in 90 degrees toward the hand path. Maybe when we play Ernie's swing here at 300 frames a second, it might look like that to you, and you might think we're folding. Either way, oops, come on, Ernie, play. There we go. It's just so slow. This has nothing to do with the backswing. So I can do a little soft shoe for you while the backswing's happening. But it may be of note that how outside that hand path the backswing is. So here we go. And it's going down the path, bend it in, starting to bend in, starting to get the left shoulder up, starting to straighten the left leg, push up toward the left ear, all the forces toward. I don't know how good a visual that is. Took an hour in Photoshop. Let's try one more time. Probably should have a little violin music playing right there. Now, we knew, right, in Hogan's book, right, Greg, that the hand path of the backswing was outside the hand path of the downswing. A lot of people don't teach that. I think find that curious. Known that for a long time. Bobby Jones. So, there's a part of this swing right here in the middle, like really early on, that force is pretty much right along the hand path. So what does that look like? Well, if I make my force along the hand path, it looks like this. Most good players look like, bad players do this. That's not along the hand path, that's a torque anyway, and that's not a good thing to do at that point in time. But then you see how I have the arrows in the middle, starting to bend in. That's because he's starting to apply a torque with a lot of help from his body, starting to apply a torque to start getting the club to not be completely out of line with the left arm. And then once that club's got enough pull on it, you start pulling the other way on it, and that's going normal. That's what happens in a regulation golf swing. Kind of a misplaced slide. Sergio Garcia in 2D. So I'll look at that, it looks like gobbledygook, I'll just show you. You stop Sergio right here, we had a 3D hologram of Sergio. And we could walk over there and touch the 3D hologram and make it move. You push the club down, it would go so far underground, if it went toward the ball, it would take 2 6-layer chocolate cakes worth of divots. So he's putting the hula hoop into the ground right here, and then he's yanking the hula hoop out of the ground, but still hitting the ground. Just taking the icing off the cake, right? So I did that in 2D, and 2D is kind of, but it turned out it's pretty important. You might see that in a magazine one day, just saying. There's possible flat spots. I mean, you know, that's a 2D model too, but it could be almost anywhere. So you can see low point, and this one is way over here, way past the left shoulder. Low point in this one as well, it's a constant low point, and then the low point here is way here, and this is just one segment here, so it's supposed to say a left arm in line with the club. Low point can be anywhere. 3D path of the hands. Anybody ever watched Ben Hogan swing or watched Greg McCatton's Blob Man will know that from about right here to the ball, Ben Hogan's hands are going left. They hit their low point, like the Tiger Woods picture, the Michael Finney picture. Good players, low point of their hands, somewhere around the right leg, and up and in at that point. That's how they sort of get one of the flat spots. If you put a club on the ground and drag it like this, your hands have to go up for that club to stay on a flat surface. 17 minutes. Dr. Nesbitt, the first time we went to see him, I've probably been 8 times. Michael Jacobs probably been 10 times. We had a whole day with him. He wore a tie, now he wears t-shirts, he knows we're nobody important. When we went the first time, a couple of us in the room, we got some money together from the boys, and we're going to pay the man for the day. And I'm sitting here, Mike Jacobs sitting there, Dr. Nesbitt sitting here, his computer's turned this way, and I just can't help but look. Not like anything you shouldn't see, but it looks like his computer may have broken. because, and I'm not hearing what these two men are saying. I'm watching this thing going, it doesn't look like flicker, it actually looks like something is computing or something. So I asked Dr. Nesbitt, your computer's supposed to be doing that? Oh yeah, optimizing. Optimizing what? Optimizing a hand path of a particularly good subject that he had from the university that he had 3D on that year. And that young man just was like the right size and weight that you'd want to do something on. You know, Billy McKinnon, right? 5'10" or 11, 170 pounds, right? Well, maybe the younger version of Billy, right? He was a college guy. He was a college guy. He was a college kid. So I said, how long has that thing been running? 6 months? How long is it gonna run? Another year or so. I said, is there any way, without messing it up, that you could print out what you have now? He says, well, wouldn't you want to wait to the end of the study? I went, how many times a day does that thing run for the last 6 months? Oh, 30,000. That'll be good enough for me. I'm teaching real golfers. So this is the green one, is the optimized hand path for that kid. That is Count Yogi, and it turns out, hey, that's a pretty good match 50 years later. So good players, you give them a golf club, a ball, they figure out how to do. You don't need to know the science. You don't have to have a computer and a PhD to run the math. But boy, it does help to know what an optimized hand path looks like and what the forces and torques ought to be. Okay, the 3 torques. Boy, this is going to work out perfect time. Okay. No, they're not those 3 wrenches. But, you know, wrench, you put torque. Okay. Alpha torque. So you don't need to know that term. It's just that's what he calls it in his papers. So I figured sometimes I do these talks and somebody goes and looks at the paper and they know what the hell I'm talking about. But just means torque, that's rotation. Torque in plane. So down here, it's kind of in the flexion extension of the wrist. Halfway down, in plane torque is more like radial null deviation or, you know, cock on cock. Same thing kind of at the top, kind of in cock on cock. Alpha torque. Everybody can see that you're putting alpha torque on the clubs. So what? Okay. So, look at this guy. Who's he? Masters champion, Bubba Watson. So remember when we were talking about the term handle dragging? The opposite of handle dragging. Now, there may not be a scientific definition of it. I think there will be. I'm going to go see Dr. Nesbitt and we're going to try to work something out. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a 3D machine you can put on a club here very soon. They were working on one a couple years ago, just didn't get the market. I mean, a real high-end one. I mean, they got the Zep, which is really good. And maybe that thing's got enough that they can program this kind of stuff in there. And you can get that handle rotation number. And maybe handle draggers are over here where Manzella was in the low 2000s. And handle rotators are over here like Bubba, like 2,900 or some crazy number. Look at these 3 images flipped right-handed, how little that point of rotation is where that golf club is right there. That club is rotating around that top of that grip or maybe a point just a little bit above that very fast. That's how a guy, really, I don't know if you've ever seen Bubba in person, but if you look past the hair and the buttoned up top collar, not that big a guy. Neither is Jamie Sadowski, right? But I think Bubba even more efficient than Jamie as far as, you know, putting the club in the ball. Beta torque. Didn't know this existed. I found out about this and I felt like the biggest fool whoever did this for a living. It turns out that there's torque that you have to apply not in the plane of the club to keep the club doing something that we would say on plane. Not really on plane, but close enough, right? You know what I'm talking about. So even if I just hold this club right here, going to like a halfway down location, this weight of this club is putting force on me. Once to do this, I'm holding it up, I'm applying what we call positive beta torque, just to hold this club here and look like a golfer for you guys for the first time all day. So when you're Sergio Garcia, just to use an example, because I think that's the video we have, and that's putting massive, laying that club down, Ricky Fowler, massive negative beta torque. You can't hit it from here. You got a massive positive beta to get the sucker back around in front of you to hit it. You know? And then everybody knows you everybody raises the handle a lot right here. That's basically negative beta. Because to the frame of reference of the club head's going this way. Yes, it's probably a hacker coming over the top of it, 15 degrees, it's probably applying too much positive beta at the wrong time. And then gamma, I knew this one. I got one right on my own before I met a scientist. Teaching slicers, you couldn't fix them without teaching them to twist the club. Because it turns out it twists a bunch. Phil Cheetah was telling me the other day, range of something like, tour players he's captured, 650 twist about the shaft at impact. Low end, couldn't remember who that was, but I do remember it was VJ on the high end twisting like 23 or 400. A lot. Everybody's twisting the grip a lot, even at impact, and then you're having to apply it earlier than that otherwise the ball would just go. Wait, alpha, beta, gamma, or on plane, off plane, and about the shaft. 3 phases of the moon. Video tangential. So that first phase we talked about, all the forces along that hand path, this will just, I think on this one it'll just play over and over a Hogan. I might have taken this thing like 1 extra frame forward here, but he's pretty much pulling his hands along the hand path right there. Y'all are good. Y'all are so good at keeping up on this. Here's a crackerjack staff y'all here. I travel all around the world doing this. That's so cool. Okay, phase 1. So it turns out Dr. Nesbitt's research shows that there's probably like 3 phases of the swing. So that first, talk about the downswing now. That first phase, pretty much, hands are going pretty much tangential along the hand path. Looks like our friend William Ben right there. Second phase, the tumble. Oh, Sergio got a lot of negative alpha, negative beta. And then he's gonna have to tumble this thing over his hands here. Looks like he's gonna hit something about right here. And then all of a sudden, a lot of shoulder, a lot of arm rotation. His hands look like they may be gonna go right in that bunker there, which is, I think that's 18 at Augusta. And then all of a sudden they go toward the middle of the bunker, right? It looked like they're going to the right edge of the bunker, and the left arm steepening, and that right shoulder's jumping on top and keeping that club going down the forearm and not going below it, right? Bad idea for a good player, and a really bad idea for those people standing right there. Right? Lexi Thompson. So once that club head gets below your hands and has enough pull, you can pull back on it, and you can't really do much. Most golfers, at best, will balance out the outward pull that you put that force in by going inward. It's got outward pull, and you can balance it out. Some people will get pulled down by that outward pull, but some people will be able to pull up on it a little bit more and bend the hand path in, and that actually, if I drop this club down a wall, it went whatever speed that is, rotationally plus gravity or something like that, if I pull this handle up, that forces this thing around more. It's called parametric acceleration, although Nick doesn't like that term. It's all right. Dr. Bureau is okay with it. It just means you're trying to bend your hand path as in as you can. But whether you do that or not, you pretty much want all the force, once that club head has some pull in it right there, to go toward you, not across the shaft, not down to the ball, heaven forbid. Lexi using every last ounce she's got to go normal. Jumping literally off the ground, pulling in. That's the third phase of downswing. Little 2D funny stuff right here. Lee Westwood, top of the grip is that red dot, right? Bottom grip's yellow dot. He's certainly not handle dragging. Don't know anything more than that, I tell you. Bubba Watson, going normal, flip right-handed. A lot of people think Bubba's swing's not that good. To me, he looks like Johnny Miller or Tom Weiskopf once you flip it around. I mean, they didn't fall down, but I guarantee you that Johnny Miller got up on his toes a whole darn, but he thought that was a fault. Just think about this now. One of my biggest critics on this earth, and I agree, that that's good footwork that Bubba's doing. We don't agree on much, we agree on that. And Johnny Miller, who, by the way, is the best ball striker I ever saw personally. I saw Snead as an old man at the Masters twice. I never saw Hogan hit a shot. I saw Nelson do a clinic when he was 60, and everybody goes, yeah, but he was 60. I said, yeah, when he was 75, he married a 42-year-old lady. His 60 and somebody else's 60 is a different 60. It was pretty impressive. And I saw, you know, the Palmer, Nicholas Player guys. Most of them went to New Orleans every year, except for Palmer, but I saw Palmer a million times, other places. Johnny Miller was the best ball striker I ever saw, better than even Tiger in 2000. And he thought his flaw was footwork that we're learning from people like Dr. Kwan now, and even observational people, that, hey, you know, I mean, if you're pretty much gonna get on your toes. Now, do you wanna do that on a wedge shot? You're trying to hit over water like that kid that won that tournament yesterday? No. At 16th hole, it looks like the pin's in the water and there's an alligator there, and he hit it like this far. No, I think his feet were flat on the ground. He really pretty much didn't need to bend the hand pad that hard to hit a 105-yard wedge shot, but that's what it looks like when you're just firing it out there like Bubba.
Brian, quickly, sorry.
Yes.
About the jump, do you think that's something they're actively doing, like jumping, or do you think it's an effect, like they're pulling with their torso?
I think that's a great question. I think when you're a little kid, like Sergio, right? So let's don't let me leave that point, but so I got to do a talk in Spain this year, and I said, boy, there's 82 people there. Somebody must know Sergio's dad, like 10 of them did. I said, nobody ever taught, his dad never taught him to lag it that much, did he? Not one day. So this is what I think happens. It's my theory. Doesn't rise to a theory, hypothesis. Sergio's a little kid, dad's a golf pro, had a club in his hand when he couldn't walk. And then he, and now he's like 6 or 7 or something. And he's got a little bit of a swing. And goes straight, you know. We got a lot of those kids we teach. Okay, so then one day he gets up, can't wait to go hit balls, got my 6 iron. The ball goes. Hey, what was that? Oh, must have been the ball. Hit it up. And he goes, oh boy. That's the hooks, I think they call it. What do I do? And he just decided, let's see, maybe if I just delay it a little longer and then flick the heck out of it. Ooh, it went straight. And we all know his name. Meanwhile, on another part of Spain, there was a kid with a little more talent than Sergio, and then there was the same age as Sergio, that learned to play on the same day as Sergio, and he was hitting balls, and his first 2 balls hooked, and he went, what do I do? And he swung further to the right, and now he's laying tile for a living. All I'm saying is that if you flicked really hard, I call this the flick. We'll look at the graphs at some point. Let's get to that right now. Because, you know, outdoors, I can talk about a lot of this stuff, but that's the lead risk graph. It's a graph I know folks I'm gonna try as much as I can to make it make sense. My really, really good friend, Grant Waite. Why I use Grant? Because everybody knows he's got, like, try to keep the left wrist flat background. Okay. We'll make this real simple. Top of the backswing, this second blue line in the middle is impact. The green line is his left wrist. This point right here, when his left wrist crosses that red line, it got flat. When it was on the bottom, ooh, Phil Kessel. Negative beta, negative alpha. Okay, so this is what that means. Grant's left wrist was bent about right here. That's when it's at the bottom, right here, bent. He's coming down. It's getting less bent, less bent, less bent. Passing through flat, club's about right there. Club's getting below his hands. Now this green line is going on the top side of the red line, arching, flexion, arching, arching. About 60 degrees before the ball, flick. That impact looks like this though. So, best example I got for you would be, can I borrow you?
Sure.
What's your name?
Patrick.
Hey Patrick, I know we met before. How about, you stand right there. So Patrick, you married?
Yes.
Okay, good. Before he was married, a girl thought he was maybe asking too many questions. So she decided she was going to, no, a friend of Patrick. Patrick, he just look at that face, he would never. So the girl was going to give him a nice old-fashioned backhand slap right in the face. Right? It was your friend, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. So here's what I think that girl would do. She would step toward him, kind of a neutral hand. As she went to slap him, she would arch her wrist, preparing to give him a little extra. I just didn't want to just give him an arm, wants to give him a little wrist. It's arching like crazy, and she starts taking it out to add some speed to the flick, and when she hits him, whap, it's still somewhat arched. Now, that's a fairy tale, right? Because you know what you would have done, you'd have got the heck out of the way. So this time, get the heck out of the way. Spider-Man left hand, I call it. That's how bent tour players' left hands look right here. From here to here, like a tenth of a second. So they're start, just like that girl that was going to hit him, they're preparing to flick, just like Sergio, preparing for the flick, starting to flick, hitting the ball still with the hands forward and the wrist even in flexion or arch, and then the ball slows the hands down for a second, or the club down for a second, makes it look worse than it is. Divot might even make it look worse, and then it rapidly goes into extension. Most tour players right here look just like that. Did a great job. Probably should have got Billy for that, typecasting. Okay. So, anyway, you can see Grant's peak is before impact, and it goes whoop this way. That's the flick, okay? So those are the alpha, beta, gamma during the swing. So I'll just do a quick one, not even make you look at the graph. So good players are applying a little bit of this in the change of direction, even when you don't see it. Because left alone, just force on the hand, tangential force on the hand path will make the club jackknife a little bit. Now, good players, you know, are used to that feeling, and they got their hands on the club good, and they keep it from happening, basically, is what they do. But in a model, in a forward dynamic or backward dynamic model, they apply a little bit of this. Even Hogan doing this was applying, just at the beginning, a little positive alpha. Just a little, just barely in the positive right there early on. And rapidly just getting rid of it, because you're going tangential. There is a little bit of positive beta, because the club is trying like this. I taught a couple of those people this weekend. They had a lot of negative beta and change direction. You almost had to kind of get them to keep it from flying behind them too much. Most bad players, crazy positive beta, worrying about hitting the ball to the right. And definitely negative gamma early on. Everybody knows Hogan's swing looks like, right? It's kind of a neutral left wrist at the top, and it gradually got a little more bent. So negative gamma, kind of preparing for the big lag move right here. Okay, the rubber meets the road in the golf swing for almost everything, right, as we say in New Orleans, chop, right here. When that left arm is pretty close to parallel to the ground, and the shaft is pretty close to, you know, as fully cocked as it's going to get. That's when you start applying this torque, and this torque. All together. That's why you look like this here, but you look like this here. Even Hogan, who looked like this right here, was like this a little while ago. He did something to get that thing out, and it ain't going to be enough to just pull and let the thing go out, although that's how the robots do it. You got to apply some positive. And then once that club head gets enough force in it, you going this way, you can't really do anything with it, and you just start pulling this way, and all the torques, force is going normal, and all the torques are going toward zero. But interestingly, as much as gamma, the twist, goes from really high here, the torque of gamma is really high right here. We saw earlier on the actual effect on the club is it's rotating like 800 degrees around the shaft here, around the head here, and 2400 right there. So what the heck does that mean? So borrow you, hold your hand like this, and it's a doorknob, and this doorknob is locked. You know, let me open it. I warned you, I'm super strong.
Okay.
Ah, okay, can't do anything. I don't know, you married. Strong, okay. Now, I was a lot of torque. Very little rotation. Measured rotation, what, like 10 degrees? Okay, I want to do it again. Never go, leave it open. Hardly any torque, a lot of rotation. So, in the gamma direction, you have right here a lot of torque, some rotation. Down here, hardly any torque, and not that much rotation. So, let me see, here's our natural brake right here for the Callaway guy, so I'm gonna see, make sure ground reaction force is great. Okay, what, you wanna take maybe 2 questions and then we switch? Just take 2?
We gotta switch. Yeah, we gotta switch.
Gotta switch now, but one question, because, go ahead.
Brian, I'm not sure if we got Billy's question answered, I'm sorry. If we answered it, I missed it. Are they jumping?
Yeah, no, we didn't answer the question. The good players are sensing that they have to do this because the club flees them, and before Sergio had that problem hooking it, he hit this far behind it, and he figured out to pull up to make contact, and then he figured out, hey, if I pull up more, it goes further. You'll figure out really fast when you're little, if you can get the club on the ball, the faster you pull up, the faster you can make the club head go. And we got more slides, but I'm gonna pantomime them outside and ask whatever questions, and we watch the ball